Welcome to OL Nation, everybody. Lawrencians here and all over the world. Welcome. Thank you. This is session 10, and we are going to be focusing on all Lawrencian trailblazers who are women. And now I welcome Bina Beliapa, Devdar, 1970. She's the Vice President of the All Lawrencians Association. Welcome, Bina. Bina has a few words for us.
Thank you, Rohan, for the introduction. For all of you who know me, I'm actually Elizabeth, Liz Tarakan. Many people got to know me as Bina, as it was always my pet name, and people got to know me by that after when I became a parent. So good evening, everyone. A great honor to be here representing the OLA. We have had 2 women presidents and many women committee members before me. Recently, we celebrated the International Women's Day, and so both our events in the month of March have focused on the women of Lovedale. A few weeks ago, we paid tribute to our lady teachers across several decades at school. And this evening, it's all our women achievers of the alumni. We really have some renowned achievers in almost every field from the early 60s right down to the 2000s. We have Padma Shri awardees, Booker Prize winner, adventure sports enthusiasts, winners of beauty pageants, undoubtedly, as they also had the brand, and what have we. Considering that we girls at Lovedale were at a ratio of 1:6 till quite recently, it's really wonderful that we have so many lady achievers. In the last decade, the ratio has tilted favorably towards the girls. And as our HM recently mentioned, in a few years, the school hopes to achieve absolute equality in numbers between boys and girls. It will no longer be a man's world in Lovedale. Great going, girls. Carry on with a true never-given spirit. Amongst all the joy of trying to be equal in numbers with the boys, I must end my note with a little sad news, and that is how we have lost Mr. Jagdish Pandey, who has been with the school for 20 years. I got to know him personally as a parent of Lovedale, as he has taught all my 3 children. And he was very, very loved. We cannot go without acknowledging what our teachers have done for us, whether it is male or female. Thank you, Rohan and team, for giving me the privilege to be here this evening. Over to you.
Thank you so much for that, Bina. Thank you very much. And now I'm delighted to welcome once again Kalpana Kutaya, Pankaj, 1980, our host for the evening. Welcome, Kalpana, and I hope you're having a great day in Atlanta, Georgia.
Thank you very much, Rohan, and hello, everybody. This is once again, like Rohan said, session 10 of OL Nation, and we're happy to be back. Each year, when March rolls along, women are celebrated around the world, and that is exactly what we plan to do today. We have a lineup of highly achieving OL women, and we are here to hear their stories, understand their journeys, and have good conversations with them. And of course, celebrate their accomplishments and applaud them for their achievements. Our speaker and moderator for today will be Fereshte Sethna DEO, batch of 1984. She's the founder member and senior partner of the law firm DMD and managing partner of their Mumbai office. She heads the firm's international litigation and ADR group. Fereshte is a well-accomplished and gifted legal counsel whose work contributions would make any Lawrencian proud. In her 30 years of litigation and arbitration experience, she's handled complex work across multiple jurisdictions in diverse industries and literally across the globe. Her experience and expertise with a wide gamut of practice permit her to handle complex matters entitling an inextricably linked interplay across elements of corporate, civil, criminal, and maritime law. Her practice area includes a significant body of taxation work encompassing direct, indirect, and international taxations, and more recently, successfully representing a global major in a $2.1 billion litigation resulting in a landmark judgment from the Supreme Court of India. Welcome, Fereshte. Thank you for joining us.
Hi, Kalpana. Lovely to meet you again.
Lovely to meet you too. And I'm glad, thank you for coming on Oil Nation and being willing to tell us a little bit about your professional journey, your life since you left school, and how it's been. And I'm impressed with all your achievements over the many years, and particularly by the last one I mentioned about the $2 billion litigation that you were successful about. Would you be fine to tell us a little bit about it?
Sure, Kalpana. Well, let me start by saying that the legal profession is really about delivering up justice.
Mm-hmm.
The zeros don't matter.
Yeah.
So,
yeah, I totally understand that.
yeah.
Totally understand that. Yeah.
So essentially, every case is the same, except perhaps the zeros. What it is that is required of a case, what it is that is required of the legal team, what it is that is required of the client, it is almost identical in matter after matter. And it's just the amount of time of your life that you set aside to deal with a particular matter that might differ from case to case, depending on the complexity that you're going to be navigating. But otherwise, it is pretty much, every day since nearly about 30 years, it's just been that same plod. So no surprises, usually, hopefully. And that pretty much is what the profession is about. It's about going over there and trying to get justice for whatever side you have agreed to represent, and making sure that no stone was left unturned. I think something to do with never give in, perhaps.
Absolutely, yeah. Something we learned very well in school, and we've practiced all our lives. And actually, I think being a Lawrencian, you're proud to do that, actually, for no matter which aspect of life you get into and you pursue. So how, can you tell us a little bit about the legal profession, how you got inspired, what caused you to get into your profession that you've pursued for the last 30 years?
Sure. So let me begin by saying that it is my grandmother who was this absolute thunder force in my life.
Nice.
She was a working woman back in the 30s in India. And anyone who's known what the 30s was like, even obviously none of us lived that time, but anyone who's known anything about that would know just how challenging that was for women in the workforce generally. Obviously, she then went on to effectively ensure that my mother would become a lawyer.
Mm-hmm.
And my mother is, in fact, OL 1958.
Ah, I did not know your mother was a Lawrencian. Nice.
I wanted to surprise you with that.
That is a surprise. Thank you.
Yeah, so so then we get to 1976 where I enter school, and my brothers follow soon after. So there's 4 of us in the family from Lawrence. And so it is really about the clear inspiration that I drew from the both of them. Mm-hmm. From my grandfather again, who was an awe-inspiring figure.
Yes.
And eventually, I think the freedom that I enjoyed in Lawrence, Lovedale, which I would think was second to none. Just that complete luxury of a life that we have never known since. The independence, everything that there was about school has just been so complete in every respect. That today, when we have a chance decades later to reflect, I have to say that it was really a lethal combination of each of these aspects, without which one really wouldn't have been able to dream and grow and achieve, I think, to whatever limited extent we have achieved anything in life, of course. I think it is also obviously driven by a sense of wanting to achieve justice, wanting to be on the side of the fence that delivers justice for the client as best one can, because obviously on the other side of the fence you have the judges. And obviously that's an easy one to transgress into, because after you qualify for a number of years, after 15 years you typically qualify in any event to get to become a judge. But wanting to stay on this side and make sure that you could make the difference is what has been super important to me. And And I hope I have made a difference in a few lives.
I'm sure you certainly have, Fereshte. I mean, you got a stellar resume and a career, and I applaud you for that. I thank you for all the hard work that you've done, and we'll, if you'd like to just share a little more about how the journey has been for you, and how whether it's been a difficult one, challenging one, once you decided to get into it.
To your question, Kalpana, I don't really know what the meaning of difficulty is. Life throws its challenges, all right.
Yeah.
And you just deal with them, chin up. And that, I think, is the only way to navigate life. And that, I think, is what we got taught in school. We learned that very early, because as we all know, all of us on this platform know, we got thrown in early in life. And we got an opportunity that I don't think very many children of our day had.
Yeah.
And perhaps even the present day, because as you know, you do not have that parental support system out there. So you're pretty much left to create for yourself what you can, thrown together with people who you didn't know before you engaged. In a sense, completely sort of perhaps at sea in terms of how you need to deal with things, but sort of getting on with it as you go back year after year, term after term.
Yep.
And I think we had some amazing seniors, you for one. I just so clearly remember you pacing down that corridor when we sort of stood there getting in line to get into the dining room for breakfast.
Right.
So we had fantastic seniors. There was Potts, I just thought the world of her.
Yes.
Anjali Shah, for those who may not know who is.
Yeah, she's phenomenal.
Yeah, and just so many absolute what I would call stalwarts from the youth, and I think that because of the way all of you guys were, you sort of allowed us to look up to you. And I think we benefited immensely from everything that we learned from you.
Yes, we did learn to be extremely independent in school, extremely versatile. It was a very diverse environment. It was a really rich environment that I think the children in school right now should recognize and should focus what they have going for them. It's when we've looked back now after leaving school. I've been gone from school for 40 years. But there's not been a single day that I didn't think or connect back with either a school memory, a friend, a thing we learned, like you said, someone who inspired us, our teachers, our professors, and everything that we learned from there. So I will let you get on with your other conversations with the other people we've lined up now. So thank you very much, Fereshte. Thank you for coming on the session, and look forward to hearing the rest of the conversation.
Likewise. Hi, everyone. Connecting with our alma mater is not just a right or a privilege. It is invariably and inevitably momentous, as it is today. Not least for the reason that it transports each and all of us back in time, almost into a time bubble, back to the joyous days of our youth. A shared experience with our school fellows, a familiar zone of sheer bliss, and despite the years gone by, for some of us, those decades have flitted by with that bond that we shared remaining permanent, unerasable, indefeasible, and ever fulfilling. While each of us navigated life's course driven by our own drumbeat, and as our favorite hymn at school said, distance may part and seas may divide us, fortunes may frown, ardors grow cool. But all of that said, today, here we are at OL Nation, and it is almost as if life stood still. That I think is just the amazing bit about connecting up with old Lawrencians. So speaking for myself, whenever I have encountered an old Lawrencian, it has inevitably been age no bar, and a truly heartwarming experience whenever it is that we've had a chance to connect. And that hasn't been very often, I have to say, because in the last 30 years of professional life, there have been very few Lawrencian lawyers that I have encountered, but I have to tell you that all of those that I've encountered have been just absolutely phenomenal. I think people with whom you have a shared childhood experience, a zone when you had that irreplaceable innocence, is one that obviously never comes back, but the very fact that we have the ability to share this platform today with Lawrencians is, and I have to say a big thanks to Kalpana Pataya, to Rohan Shetty, to Rashid Kapadia, to Murad Lala, and to all of the wonderful panelists that they have put together for Oil Nation Session 10 today, because this is certainly my book, a very interesting session indeed, given what we are going to learn about what is essentially across 3 or 4 decades of old Lawrencians, starting from Meher Castelino, 1960, and drilling us down to Tanaz Noble in 2002 Nilgiri, with Purnima Menon, 1988 Devdar, and Deepika Rao, 1995 Pankaj. Before we allow our speakers to take center stage, let me just give you a brief introduction into each of our speakers this evening. We have Meher Castelino, as I just mentioned. Meher has led an exotic life. She was 1964 Femina Miss India, and she went on to make her mark, truly make her mark in the fashion world. I would think in the annals of fashion history in India, Meher is a true legend. And thank you, Meher, for talking with me this evening. It's going to be an absolute pleasure. Talking then about Purnima, who is our next speaker today. Purnima, as I mentioned, is 1988 Devdar. She is a cross-border nutritionist. Of course, Purnima can tell us a lot more about the work that she has done. But it is very interesting to know that she's done maternity and child nutrition and contributed in a big way, both as a researcher and as part of a group that actively works in South Asia on matters nutrition. Coming then, as we will, to Deepika. Deepika is someone who has worked with Tata Group, needs no introduction, the Tata Group. And she has scaled from Tata Motors over to Ginger Hotels, where she is currently a CEO. Again, I think an extremely interesting navigation there, because as we know, they're very diverse, different industries. And finally, we have Tanaz Noble, who is Nilgiri 02, 2002, who, amongst other things, runs a popular kayaking resort out in the Andamans. Now, I think that is just absolutely brilliant. I went to the Andamans when we were back in school. I think it was in 1979. It was unspoiled, and I'm so looking forward to hearing Tanaz tell us all about the Andamans today. And of course, what she has done in terms of going out there and building what I understand to be an extremely popular and successful business model out there. So with that, let me hand this straight over to Meher. Meher, why don't you give us a deep dive into the exotic life that you have led in the fashion industry? Over to you, Meher.
Hi, Fereshte. Thank you so much for that very flattering introduction. I have to say that it's an absolute pleasure for me to be part of the OLA Nation Session 10. For me, Lawrence School Lovedale has been the most important part of my life. Lawrence School made me who I am today, and I will be ever so grateful to that school. I started off from an all-girls school and then was thrown straight away into a co-ed school in the middle of 19 1958, which was the centenary celebrations of Lawrence School Lovedale. From then on, I changed, or rather the school changed my personality completely. From a shy girl who never spoke, who sat at the back of the class, was extremely introverted, I came to Lovedale and I became an extrovert. And my journey into journalism is only due to Mr. K.I. Thomas's teaching of the English language. Every day I think of him when I write my articles, and I think of how he made me sit next to him and corrected every single line of my essay, and made sure that if he gave me 5, I would make sure that the next time I would get 5.5. So for me, Lovedale has been the beginning and the end of my whole life, and I really have great memories of the school. And as far as the our motto is, never give in, that has kept me in check also. Because being a fashion journalist is something that was never there in India. And I had to push and push into the publications, especially the broadsheets, the English broadsheets, who never thought of taking an article on fashion. I had to persuade them gently and with great persuasion to take an article on fashion. And today, every single paper, Indian or English, has a huge page on fashion. So being a fashion journalist in India was like taking baby steps in kindergarten as far as the fashion industry was concerned.
Mayor, thank you. That by itself just sounds like so much of an achievement of its own, because clearly without that kind of push, you could never ever have brought it to place today.
And I have to add over here, Fereshte, that my love for the modeling business actually started in Lovedale. You'll be surprised to hear that in 1959, there was a huge fashion show that came to the Nilgiris, and it was, I think, at, I don't know, one of the places on the hills. And the Lovedale, we were taken to see this fashion show. It was by Calico Mills. And I saw that show and I was totally enamored by it. And I dreamt that I would one day want to walk on the ramp, and I did walk on the ramp for Calico in 1971. And that was Lovedale that got me into the swing of things.
That's absolutely brilliant. That's fantastic that you dreamt and you achieved, because what you're saying is you looked into the future almost, and
yes,
seen what you had effectively experienced, and obviously wanted to manifest that, and you manifested that. I think that is just superb, Meher. I think that speaks absolute wonders for what you are capable of doing.
I've always felt, Fereshte, that you get a lot of opportunities in life, and these opportunities one can take advantage of suddenly. Even if the door is slightly ajar, I push it and walk into it. And then from one opportunity to another, the journey goes on, and you discover suddenly that doors are opening for you. So I don't think any opportunity is very small. The tiniest little chance I get, I move forward and make the most of it. And then that goes into a bigger story and a bigger, thing in my life.
I think that resonates completely, Meher, with my experience, if I may just go back to it, which is, no case is too small.
Exactly.
That's what you're saying. And that is precisely what it is that I have approached.
Yes. Yeah.
And I'm so happy to hear that, you and I have that shared experience, because that's clearly the answer, isn't it? And I think for everyone who's out there and listening to OL Session 10, OL Nation Session 10, it's a very, very important takeaway that, first and foremost, you have to do what you have to do, no doubt. but never ever think that any task is too small for you or any situation is beneath you. And that is what school taught us. You know, it taught us that sense of equality. It taught us that sense of go-getter, if you will. It taught us that sense of sportsmanship. It taught us just about everything that we bring into our everyday life today. And that is really why I think, Meher, you are sitting over here on this platform, isn't it?
Yes, and Fereshte, what else that Lovedale has taught me is discipline. And discipline, I find now, has paid great dividends for me. Because if I wasn't disciplined, I would not have been a journalist for 40 years. And I would not have been able to hold a deadline for that long. Because in journalism, it's discipline that matters. And if you don't hold your deadline, then you're out. And that is where Lovedale came in. And I knew exactly how to be disciplined and be on time, do everything in an organized manner. So once again, I owe everything to Lawrence.
Well, that's fantastic. So tell us, Meher, have you encountered any significant challenges that you would specifically say that you were able to navigate better in life? Because life has challenges, of course, but were you able to navigate them in any way on account of the fact that you did effectively look at life through the prism that you had through the benefit of your Lovedale years?
Yes, definitely, especially Fereshte, when I was selected as Miss India by Femina, I was the first one ever selected by the magazine. And the magazine didn't know what the winner had to do. And I, of course, had never been abroad, so I didn't know what a beauty queen has to do. But because of the confidence that I had from Lovedale, I was able to hold myself amongst, two contests. One was Miss United Nations and one was Miss Universe. Miss Universe had 85 girls from all over the world, and Miss United Nations had 65. And I was able to hold myself and present India and also, show how an Indian girl is, what are the things that India is famous for. And all that is because I think I was in Lovedale and I learned so much about the country.
So
Yes.
tell us, Meher, what would you think was your favorite memory of school? I have to take you back there because I know this is about professional, but I'm really curious to know what was that one thing that stood out for you back in school?
I would say that my most favorite memory of school was I became a prefect, and when I won the inter-school debate contest, which was held in, I think, KT, and the subject was about Kashmir, should there be a plebiscite or not. And I was really thrilled that I won that contest. For a girl who never opened her mouth to talk before I came to Lovedale, I enjoyed debating. And I was in the forefront of most of the debates. And I remember that whichever side I was on, for or against, we managed to score. So I think that those were also very memorable moments for me.
Tell us more about what happened in the later years in terms of your connecting up with school. Did you ever have a chance to go back and share your experience with people out in school, or have you pretty much sort of...
Yes. I've been to school twice. I mean, of course, I have been to school for our 50 years anniversary, which was in 2010. But when Ramesh Venkatraman was the principal, he invited me to give a talk to the senior girls on grooming and deportment and personality development. And after that, in 2010, when Colonel Prasad was the headmaster, I had a 3-day workshop for the senior girls again, where I taught them how to walk, how to talk. And finally, the girls put up a fashion show in which Miss Personality or Miss Lovedale was selected. And it was such a grand success that the following year, Colonel Prasad said that I should even groom the boys in the school. And the boys were very keen on, doing a fashion show after being groomed by me. So I have had a lot of connection with the school. And yes, in 1971, Mr. K.I. Thomas invited me to open the craft exhibition during Founders. And that was a really memorable day for me.
That is fantastic. I know a lot about Kit, I think is what he was called, because of my mom. Obviously, she was fortunate to have him as her English teacher as well. So,
by the way, Fereshte, I have to tell you, your mom and I are great friends. We gone to Kashmir together, and we've been to Lovedale again after we left in 1960, and we used to be quite a lot, roaming around in Mumbai and all that. So please follow my regards.
I do know all about that. Actually,
Yes.
I will certainly.
Yes, please do tell her. Yeah.
I will certainly. Yep. Well, so tell us more, Mayor, about you. What would you think was the one big message you would want to give to the current current Lawrencian? Sorry, pardon me for that. The current Lawrencian. What is your message to them?
So my advice would be follow that motto of ours: never give in, and persevere. Be persistent. Follow your dream, and whatever you want, work on it. Work on it really hard from scratch. Don't expect to, jump and have miracles happening for you. No matter what your profession is, go for it, because that is exactly how you can attain your dreams. And my dream was to be part of the fashion world and to be a fashion journalist. And I went for it. I persevered. It was not easy at all to first become a model or, break into the modeling world, because at that time there were no models who were doing it professionally. And in the 60s when I started, it was a tough job, and it was definitely not a paying job either. But I continued because I loved it. Whatever you love, do it. Don't think about the payment, because that will follow anyway. But it is more important to love what you're doing than doing what you don't like.
I couldn't agree with you more, Mayor. That really is, in my opinion, the way in which life must be led, which is go with the flow.
Yes.
Enjoy each day.
Yes.
And things will just work out exactly as they should.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Well, so any final passing shot from you, Meher?
Well, for me, it's been a great journey, especially from Lovedale. I've met the most wonderful people. I'm still in touch with all my classmates. And I know that when you're part of Lovedale, no matter who you meet and whichever year you meet, no matter how young or old they are, the connection is instant. And I think that to be part of the Lovedale family has been the most wonderful part of my life.
Well, thank you, Mayor. I have to say that it's completely resonated by one and all. And and I'm really pleased to have met you on this session, and thank you so much for your time.
Yes, thank you so much, Fereshte. It was great chatting with you.
Mayor, thank you very much for sharing a bit of your life with us. And my question for you is, as a professional, when you stand in the spotlight of, spotlight, I don't mean metaphorically, you could say metaphorically as well, but when you stand in the spotlight representing your country, representing yourself, representing your school, representing your life, what are the qualities one must kind of emulate, or what were the things that you have to hold high esteem or be cognizant about when you are out in the world?
I feel, Kalpana, that the most important quality is elegance for a woman, sophistication, as well as dignified feminism, which will make her an outstanding example of not only our country, but of herself, and to maintain her personality at all times. Not follow fashion or not, go with the trends, but be herself, which is very important.
I'm happy to hear you say that, and that's exactly what I hope you'd say, because it's an important thing that you carry. Actually, you might be on stage for yourself, but there are a lot of people who kind of go along with you in life when you do that. So thank you very much, Mayor.
Thank you.
Hi, Purnima. Welcome to OIL Nation Session 10. And thank you for joining us this evening. So for everyone listening to us this evening, let me just quickly introduce Purnima. Purnima is Devdar Batch 88, as you can see from her screen. She is a team leader for the South Asian Nutrition Program in IFPRI's Poverty, Health and Nutrition Division. In her work in India, Purnima directs an initiative to support more use of evidence for nutrition in India. She conducts research on scaling up maternal and child nutrition interventions, including large-scale behavioral change communications, programs in nutrition and health across South Asia. I'll leave you to pick it up from there. Purnima, tell us all about you.
I know that sounds like a lot, but the bottom line is I'm a researcher. I study public policy and public programs, and the reason I studied that aspect of maternal and child nutrition is because we really want research that makes a change. So I really love it when I can study something, and when those results are used by governments or by non-governmental organizations to actually make, the changes that just make the world a little better place, a day at a time, if you will. I didn't, I actually had no idea I would end up here. Like many other things one does in life, the journeys are just sort of, they just evolve. And so I didn't expect to find myself here. I didn't expect to find myself back in India when I began on this journey of doing a PhD and figuring out the kind of research I wanted to do, etc. But it's been an amazing journey, and I really, really enjoy what I do, mostly because I find that people who I work with, they want to make change for most part. And when we when I and my team, when we do the research that we do and we help people to see where, things are working and where things are not working, it's just a real pleasure when they feel like, okay, this is great. We can use the information you're sharing with us to make things work better for the poor. So for me, that's, it's just been a very rewarding profession. And since I settled into this, into this part of it, so I would say almost 20 years now, I just haven't felt like I want to do anything that's too different from this. One does different kinds of research, one does maybe more research, one has a bigger team, but in the end, this is what I do. I love to do work on something that is one of the biggest challenges that we face in this region. We have a huge burden of poor nutrition outcomes among women and children, and the ability to do at least something small. I'm not running a program. I'm not implementing some magic solutions. I don't believe there are any anyway. But by doing research and creating knowledge, I think I feel very passionate about using that as a tool to make the world a better place. So that's what I do. I'm just basically a researcher trying to get people to pay attention to what's happening on the ground.
That's fantastic. Thank you. That sounds amazing. So connect the dots for us. How does this connect up with anything that you did nutritionally or otherwise in school?
I don't think topically, I don't think it's so much of a topical connection. I was in school until the 10th, so I didn't do my 11th and 12th there. I knew I liked science. I knew I liked math. I knew I liked to write. And in a sense, the beauty of my job today is that I use all of those interests. I bring everything together. I do a lot of numbers work. I do a lot of writing. And it all sort of comes together, but I would not have imagined myself to be a researcher, at all, or to be working in public policy when I was in Lovedale. But I think there are things that I learned there that, that I think about all the time. And decision making, all of us are making decisions all the time. And I think it's when you see, children who maybe didn't grow up in a place where they really did have to make decisions. All of us were making decisions all the way from when we were little about whether we would do something or not. And recognizing that every little decision has a consequence attached to it. We learned that very, very early in life. And I think that's something that I apply a lot. You know, I find it really interesting that, you know, we knew then, hey, if I don't polish my shoes, there's a consequence here. But sometimes I just make that decision, right? And it's not to be, it's not a trivial issue, because what you realize in life, and especially when you look at the Indian educational system, is that very young people are not used to making decisions. They are being told what to do all the time by their parents, or, you know, by a certain kind of an educational system. That's not what we had. You know, we were still making a lot of decisions about our day-to-day lives. So that's one thing huge for me. The other thing, which I think is really very powerful, and I didn't really start reflecting on it, you know, until 3 or 4 years ago, when I was seeing the conversations happen on our group WhatsApp and things like that, is just this valuing of diversity. You know, I don't think anyone should take that for granted, that what we got in Lovedale was a microcosm of what India is, and what a microcosm of what the world is. And the fact that we were able to value people as individuals, as human beings, and see each other just as people, not as, you know, it's a Parsi, a Hindu, a Sikh, or a Muslim, or something else. That is a very powerful training for the young mind. You know, it really, in a sense, insulates you against discrimination. It teaches you that people of all kinds can support people of all kinds and walk with them, you know, on their life journeys, and what matters there is a human connection. So for me, that's something that I've really taken away from Lovedale, and I don't think I knew it then. I think this is something that I discovered slowly as I, you know, ended up in educational settings where maybe I, you know, found other people who hadn't had sort of an exposure to that level of diversity around them. And I think the last is just the value of routines. You know, I just feel like there was such a set routine to the days of our lives in Lovedale, and you realize as you go through life that that is really critical. You know, you have to know what you want every day to look at, because in the end, that's what life is made up of. And I feel like, again, not things that you valued then, but knowing how to live life in certain routines of when you eat and when you know, do stuff, and when you should exercise, etc. That makes a very big difference. I think, you know, I took away a lot from the years in Lovedale. You know, for me, I also have, you know, one other piece that's very personal, and which is that, you know, you don't see it necessarily now, and probably not on screen, but I had very, very severe eczema when I came to Lovedale. You know, there was no escaping the fact I was head to toe covered with eczema, head to toe. No one discriminated against me for that. And the kind of confidence and self-esteem that I think that gave me to say that, you know, here's a bunch of people, boys, girls, they didn't treat me differently because I looked different, because I had a skin condition that, you know, was very, you know, very dramatic if you were to look at it. That taught me a lot, you know, that, and I think that insulated me. I had, you know, very good friends in Lovedale, and you don't realize when, you know, I didn't realize until much later how much sort of that safety net of the insulation of friends and people around you who just did not see you as any different, even though, you know, you had that condition. So I am tremendously grateful for that. But I think it happened because, again, you know, we sort of understood that everyone was an individual there, and that, you know, people mattered. So I took away a lot from that. You know, I don't, I value that a lot. And I think it gave me the self-esteem and the confidence to do what I do, and to not be bothered about the fact that other people may have questions to me about, you know, what my skin condition was, this, that, and the other. But I had sort of walked through life being like, hey, that doesn't matter. What matters is who I am, what's in my mind, and what's in my brain, and what's in my heart, you know? It's very powerful.
You're absolutely right. I think there's just no substitute for the fact that we grew up with people who are non-judgmental, if I were to take away from what you said, and that is precisely our experience. They were non-judgmental. And obviously, in turn, they ensured that we became non-judgmental. So we went through life, I would think, back in school and as we do today, in a format which is non-judgmental. And I think that's what makes us perhaps different from what one might call mainstream judgmental. So let me leave it there. But I have to say that my experience is that this is common with everyone who went away to boarding school. Because whether you're talking to somebody, I have dear friends out of Dunes and Paul's, from Sinar and so on. And it is absolutely brilliant because when you actually sit down to compare notes, you will find that all of them speak the language we do. And I think that is really the connect that all of us at some point in time would aspire for again in life, having had decades away of professional life and realizing that no doubt we evolve and the world evolves, but we evolve perhaps in a slightly dramatically different way is my takeaway.
Yeah.
Of course, that is, I'm sure all of us on this platform will be happy to applaud ourselves and move on. But so much for that. So tell us, Purnima, what would you think was the one big memory of school that holds you in good stead today?
I don't know that it's one big memory, but I think there's a, sort of clusters of memories which surround, which really are around friendship. And of course, some things are more prominent than others. I don't know if any of you had this, but, we had a few pretty epic midnight feasts, which happened, of course, around Founders when the parents came back. And so, there's some unusual for Lovedale because the food memories at school were not always good, but that was a very good food memory.
Which takes you straight back into nutrition then.
So I have to say, so this is the interesting part. I was always very interested in food. And in fact, I started studying nutrition in my bachelor's degree because I thought I was going to end up in hotel school. I was, very good at science and math and whatever else, but I was very interested in food and I was very interested in the hotel industry, which is why I'm saying I didn't think I would end up in research. But, as I studied nutrition, I realized it was so much about science and then, went on to continue that and then realized that, a lot of it was, back to issues of public policy and to how people are valued, in the eyes of the policy setup. And anyway, so so food has always been a big, big part of this journey for me. So that's a great memory of school. And then I have another really funny memory. So I am miserable at anything that relates to sport, like just truly miserable. But I think, again, this is a great example of, the chances that people take on you in life, right? Which is that, okay, I'm 5'2", which is really nothing now and was even tinier then, but I somehow made it on to be a reserve on the basketball team. And then we ended up at George's actually playing a match. And I had to come out at the absolute very end. And I'm sure I made such a hash of it, but it's such an abiding memory because I was like, why would anyone put me on a team? But I think they put you on a team because everyone should have that experience, and so that really stuck with me. I certainly wasn't a sporty anything, I was more on the brainy side, if you will, in school, but we all had to do something or the other. So I think for me, that's quite a memory, quite an interesting one.
That's fantastic. So relating your professional knowledge to the tuck shop, how does that stack up on nutrition levels? I'm curious, given what you know.
Right. So, nutrition science is very clear. We don't talk about good foods and bad foods and magic foods and evil foods. Health is an issue of lifelong patterns of how we live. It's a product of that. Our good health or bad health at any given point in time is related to the patterns and the ways in which we live. It's not related to whether I ate a bunch of chia seeds for breakfast today and then flax seeds 10 months from now. So a little tuck is not a bad thing. You just can't make every meal full of tuck. I eat dessert with, at least once a day. I'm not shy of that, but I, eat very healthy meals as well. So I think it's all about balance and routine.
Wow, that's fantastic. So what is your one big message to everyone who's out there in school today, Purnima?
It's tough, but, I think firstly, be kind to the people around you. This, I think we are, but sometimes it's easy not to be, especially as, life gets busy. And, I've been through all phases of being kind and not being kind in my life. But I think as I'm going to be 50 this year, and I manage a very big team of people. And one thing I've learned is that humanity and sort of a kindness and respect for each other matters the most in getting the best work out of people and out of yourself. So that's, that's one. And the second is just, believe in yourself. Just the belief that you can do it. Because I think if we believe, then we work towards that belief. But if we don't believe in ourselves, it's hard to find the grit to walk that path towards the belief. We just can't be afraid of hard work. We just absolutely can't. And I think this is where the never given motto is so strong for me. My job is very difficult. I have to convince a lot of people to do things for nutrition programs and policies. I have to convey uncomfortable news to people. I have to speak truth to power. And if I didn't believe in myself, if I didn't believe that, I could do this, and if I didn't work really hard at doing that, it would be really difficult. My job would be very difficult. But you have to believe in, have that belief in the end, and then have the grit to walk towards that belief. So kindness, grit, and believing in yourself and your mission, I think these are three things that I would really want people to walk with through their lives. Thank you.
Any advice for people at school in terms of nutrition? I'm sure they'd love to imbibe what it is that you have to offer.
Well, like I said, it's all about patterns, and, you just really have to make sure that your plate has lots of colors on it, as many colors as possible in every meal. And just not too much and not too little. It's in the end, it's actually simpler than people would make it out to be. But actually achieving those colorful, diverse plates, which is what most of us nutritionists are trying to get people to do, is hard. But I just want people to remember that. Look at your plate at every meal and ask yourself if you have enough colors on there. You'll probably end up eating well if you start paying attention to that.
Brilliant. I'm sure everybody who's managing school will take care of that. Thank you for that. Very useful. Very useful tip. Thank you for your time.
Thanks, Purnima. That was a very interesting conversation you've just had with Fereshte. I enjoyed and heard all that you said. I'm glad that you brought up the topic of diversity, equality, equity, and fairness for everything. Those are things that I personally hold in high esteem from school, actually, and find it extremely easy to live life now just because it was inculcated within us in school. I just would like to ask you, what are you currently working on? What's on your plate professionally, work-wise? What's the research you're doing? Can you share a little bit with us on that angle?
Sure. Yeah. No. I have a large research team and a bunch of different collaborators I work with around the world and in India. So I have quite a lot on my plate. One of the biggest things we do is try to analyze the data that's available in public, the large surveys that are done to understand what's going on with nutrition in India and in the region. So not just India, but also South Asia, and really to understand what are the drivers of the current state of maternal and child nutrition. We try to understand what kinds of policies governments have put in place, how far they are from reaching people, because it's really one thing to have a policy written on paper, it's quite another thing to have the programs that deliver on those reaching people. So we do a lot of research looking at how well public programs are reaching people. Are they meeting their equity goals? Are they being delivered with quality? Are people using them? Are people benefiting from them? So I do a lot of work with analyzing data. I do program impact evaluations. And then the other piece of work that we do is sort of engage with the policy makers and policy community. So I support a lot of different people with data and evidence, hoping that it helps make all the programs that are happening and being run here better.
Thank you. Thanks very much for that answer.
Sure.
Yep.
Thanks.
Wish you very well, and may you be successful, because research is an extremely important piece of the profession to bridge the knowledge gaps that exist in our professional lives. So thank you for doing that angle as well. And thanks for coming on the program.
Thanks, Kalpana. Thank you for the opportunity to be here.
Hi, Deepika. Welcome to OL Nation 10. Pleasure to meet you on this show. And let me just do a quick introduction of you for everyone who's watching us today. So Deepika Rao is Pankaj 1995. She is currently the Managing Director and CEO of Ginger Hotels, which, as all of us know, is the Tata Group Taj Hotel function. She leads the reimagination of Ginger Hotels and has essentially brought about an experiential and aspirational brand through transformational changes in design, product, technology, and service philosophy, with Deepika's leadership having allowed Ginger to record the highest ever customer satisfaction scores, with brand footprint having grown by 40% in barely 24 months to encompass a 70 hotel portfolio, which is one of the largest in the mid-scale economy segment in India. That is an astounding achievement. Deepika, tell us, what drove you?
Oh, well, I didn't think I was heading here, to be very honest. I think, like someone said earlier, it was just an evolution, and I guess I didn't write the script for myself. Well, maybe if I think of it, it was just fundamentally, I just identified what I would like to do, and which was broadly in the space of, defining a product or a service that would respectfully address the larger masses of India's population. Like my own thought process that there was a lot of evolution whenever you looked at luxury products or even upscale products in any facet of life, whether it's a home, whether it's clothing. I thought that was fairly evolved, and so it seemed to be that nobody was really venturing out to really define a product or a service and then make it profitable also, right? So that you continue doing that. So I was broadly interested in that space, and I felt that it was worth my time to work on any product or any service that would essentially give a lot of respect and give a lot of value to a larger customer base in the country. So I think that was my basic thing that I was seeking in the kind of choices I made in my career. And that's really how I eventually ended up being at Ginger Hotels. So if you see, as you would have guessed, it's basically addressing accommodation needs for the more mid-scale kind of a segment, right? So that's really how it spoke to my interest areas, and that's how I landed up. Honestly, it could have been anything. It could have been a water purifier. It could have been value housing. I would have been happy to give my time and my career to it.
Thank you. That's very interesting, Deepika. So tell us, how does that actually stack up with your school dorm?
I think Purnima, spoke about it in terms of diversity, so the interesting thing is your dorm or your class was made up of people from all walks of life. I don't think it was one strata of society. So I'm keeping religious things out of it. But just if you look at it as let's look at it different segments of society. I think it was fairly nice and mixed, and so it just wasn't one kind of thought process or one kind of upbringing or one kind of background. So you had couple of your batchmates were at the tea estates, some coming way up from the hills or capitals or metro cities, and somebody like me who was actually coming from smaller towns in the country, So I guess it was my ability to probably get exposed to both those worlds and believe that I could be a bridge between the two. I think that's the connect between my life in Lovedale, where I did come from a smaller part or a smaller town of India. I'd really not been to metros or lived in metros. I probably had visited, but didn't really have early days there. But then I also could coexist with a real nice mix back in school. So I guess I'm always trying to build that, be that bridge or be that connect, if I could put it like that. And I think the school, looking back, may have been early days on which actually believe that I could coexist in both these worlds and make meaningful contributions, I suppose.
Well, that's fantastic. You're absolutely right that that does set up the stage for what you do in life. I think that's what we're taking away from everybody, starting from Meher,
Right,
Purnima, and I think it's just a common position that everybody comes from, which is that is really the big driver. And it's very interesting that we get to realize it, you know, a couple of years, maybe a couple of decades down the road. But that realization, and thanks to Kuti and Rohan and Rashid and everyone else who's doing the show, today we can actually have the means to share what it is so many decades down with people who are back in school still, and obviously people who have left school recently and would obviously want to understand what being part of the OL community is about, and obviously what it contributes in your life as a whole. And I think that is the big takeaway for me today from talking to all of you guys. So tell us, Deepika, how did you switch over from Tata Motors over into Ginger? That was something that intrigued me when I had a
Right. You know, so it's a little bit like, if I can connect it to school, it's a little bit like, see, both my parents are doctors and they continue to work in this town with a population of about 2 lakhs or so, and they have their own clinic. I guess somewhere one thought that I would pick up science, but I didn't, and I wasn't good enough for it, I think, when I finished my 10. And actually, if I can just share, I came to Lovedale way back, even before Lawrence. I was 4 years old. I joined Lena School, which was a feeder school as such to Lawrence. I mean, I guess there was an entrance exam. I have no memory of having done it or cleared it. I just knew that one of my very good cousins and good friends, and also a cousin, didn't make it with me, and that was more depressing about the day, and then actually having gotten admission into the into Lawrence School. So I was in Lovedale since I was 4 years old, actually, and the reason for that was the fact that my parents were in a smaller town and they wanted to send me to an institution which would give me a certain kind of education, I suppose, and a certain kind of experience. So you see, what I'm trying to say is that I guess I just walking through life, right? Lena School happened, Lawrence happened, 10th happened, science didn't happen, commerce happened. So some of these things wasn't like, you know, I wasn't so organized in my mind. I want to do this, not so early on, at least, for sure. And I can admit that, you know, so I was, sometimes the choices were out of ruling out some other options and arriving at what is left. You know, I clearly don't want to do this is probably what drove me to choose then commerce. And so something like this, like I went on to do my master's in economics, and there was, I was still in a dilemma then that by then I had somehow turned the bend academically. Like while I did at 10th, as I mentioned, I didn't make the cut for science. So you must have got a sense that I wasn't really at that high percentage scoring that normally would give you admission to science. So I chose commerce, and I don't know, something magically happened. I did so well. I took to it so well. I was like suddenly top of the class, which was so new to me to experience all of that. And I really don't know what happened. I always think back that really was some inflection point in my life. And maybe there was some virtuous cycle, because suddenly I just continued to remain there, like in any academic program that I went on to do thereafter. 11th happened, 12th, I think, again, within the commerce section, top of the class, then went to do my graduation program, again, top of the class. My parents were like, this we expected from the elder one, not you. So given where how I'd been till the 10th. So, and then when I was in my master's, again, I finished top of the university. This is like amazing. I mean, really not a script I'd imagined back then. So I don't know, some magic happened in 11 standard when I was back in school. So Tata Motors comes to campus, and it's quite interesting. They like to hire people with diverse backgrounds. So as you would think, it's an engineering company, so they have a lot of engineers who are the bulk of their workforce. But just to add some diversity to the talent pool, they like to take people who are masters in economics, statistics, and I think psychology. So that's how I got in, because they came to campus and gave me a job offer. So I got in. Once I was in there, I was in various departments there, worked there for about 5 years, and then I decided to apply for the Tata Administrative Services. So that's because I made it to the Tata Administrative Services, then it kind of opens up the group for you, so you can move across industry. That's how I moved from, I just decided, Fereshte, not real again, I just wanted to experience a lot of variety. That I was clear about. And I was searching for this thing that I mentioned to you, like how can I have a larger impact? And since I came from a smaller town, I had this great opportunity. How can I, in some sense, maybe give back? That probably was on my mind. So that's why I wanted to kind of get into, so hotels was one choice, which would then allow me to move into Ginger Hotels. So that's how I've done. And then I also wanted to move like manufacturing for 5 years. I said, let me try something completely different and challenge myself, because I felt that the older you get in life, you probably will start taking less risk. So I felt that, let me take all of those challenges up front and move from manufacturing to service and not be too comfortable in a space. So that was the other reason. So I picked hotels. So I think basically the TAS program that enabled this diverse industry experience.
Well, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
So tell us, what is your one big message to people back in school?
I think both being in the hills, right from being in Lena School in Lawrence, I think one thing that I can say is that, it really taught me like almost 12 years or so away from home, 12 to 13 years. I think clearly the thing is that you'll bounce back, I think there's no one kind of destiny written for you, and you've got to just rise up from whatever happens and, give yourself another chance each time. It really worked for me. As I tried to tell you all that I was going with the drift and enjoying myself probably, but I guess maybe my early calling happened back in school. And, so to actually then finish up school, doing well academically, becoming a prefect, becoming a captain of your badminton team, I'm sure my parents thought more from my brother, who was just a year senior to me in school, than they saw what I've been through. So I suppose I'm saying that, life can surprise you. You should just, you can see that you'll bounce back. And so you've got to just kind of keep your self-confidence intact. I think that's what I learned, at least through that journey.
So your message is go with the flow, hang in and do well, and it will happen.
It will happen. Yes, it will happen. Yeah,
that's fantastic. That's a very positive message. Thank you for that, Deepika.
Right.
So tell us, what is, according to you, the one trait that school certainly instilled in you?
I think collaboration. One of my biggest strengths, I'm told over the years, whether it's essentially, you kind of realize you don't have your parents with you, you have your classmates, you have your seniors, you have your juniors, you just collaborate, you reach out, and that's really how you survive and grow and learn, right? So I think one of my key things that I really like to believe was inculcated in school for me is to really reach out and collaborate. So across the board, and like people are surprised that I can get along well with so many different kinds of people, for whatever walks of life they're in. And I think that's really coming from school. Like even I remember once I was called out of the assembly line by the head girl. I must have been in standard 4 or 5. I was wondering, what is it that I don't, my nails are not cut? Do I not have my tie in the right place? She actually took me inside one of the dorms, which was, actually it was not the assembly line, it was a line heading into the dining room. So she took me into one of the dorms and she just helped me dress up better. Like she adjusted my shirt from, like pulled it down so it'd be neat and straight, and did my tie like this. And it's such a memory of so long ago, but I thought it was very nice. So I think we had each other, and there's so many such examples of how we just reached out to each other and navigated life. And that really taught us collaboration. I really think that's what I bring to the table at my workplace, and people feel very comfortable with me as a member of team or leading a team is only because of my level of empathy and my ability to collaborate, which is because of school.
Oh, that's fantastic, Deepika. Thank you. You are truly a Lawrentian, like everyone else before you on this panel. So it's wonderful talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Fereshte.
Thank you very much, Deepika. That was very nice hearing all your responses to Fereshte's questions. And you brought up many, qualities that you need as a leader to be a leader. You brought up collaboration, you brought up challenges, empathy. There were many such that you brought up. Can you just tell not just me, but everybody on the audience, what does it take to be a leader? One, having gone through the TAS program that you mentioned, the things that you might have learned or things that you might have always continued in your job. And also, if you can share a little bit about conceiving an idea and when you conceive an idea, what do you keep in mind and how do you find a way to move that forward, implement it, put it to action so that others trying to aspire to do those things might be a little informed.
Right. So to the first question, I think you asked on what does it take to be a good leader? From where I've seen life, and I can say that humility is something that comes to me immediately. I think when the team sees that trait in you and the fact that you're receptive, it's amazing how people open up, and it's good because you do have your own blind spot. So if you're receptive to feedback or receptive to suggestions or an alternate way, it just works wonders for the company or whatever collective cause you're working on. So I think humility and receptiveness is something I would say in leadership. I mean, not just within an organization, but I think anywhere else, because then the kind of engagement you build is quite special. On the second point, I think you said on an idea, how do you run with an idea?
Yeah.
So maybe just
how do you conceive the idea and how do you run with it?
Yeah. So I think the good thing about ideas is that it needs acceptance of failure. I think that's the first mindset, that you're going to know that there are going to be ideas at a tactical level, at a strategic level, which some will work, some will not work. So I think first, what I have seen is that, whenever, whether it's something that I come up with or anybody in my team, we want to quickly implement and test within a environment, and if we do well, scale it up. If we don't, then don't be too harsh on it and move to the next one, because otherwise, so I think that works, because that then keeps the juices flowing for the next wave of ideas. At a strategic level as well, ideation on some of the strategic choices you make have larger implications when they go wrong. So then you try to define your control environment in such a way that one is sure that you can mitigate any negative impact of it. So I think one critical thing for to keep the cycle of ideation going is the acceptance of failure. That's going to happen. And the second aspect of it is to execute fast, because then the relevance of the idea, it's such a dynamic world. I mean, all of us can see the times that we're living in. Everything has a context and it has a timing. So execute fast, don't be worried of failure, and contain your losses or mitigate your risks from a failure. I think that's what I would say.
Thank you. Appreciate your responses on all, and I'm sure it's helpful to people who are thinking of things like this and just wondering how to start or where to begin, So thanks very much. Yeah.
Thank you, Kalpana.
Hi, everyone. We have with us Tanaz Noble. She is Nilgiri batch 2002. And Tanaz is someone who, I must say, I was utterly astounded by reading her profile. She has run through a series of very different escapades, if I may term them so, through her working life of nearly about 18 years now, I would think, or thereabouts. Given the type of work that she has done, I understand, Tanaz, you have been a bartender, you have been a crime reporter, and currently run a kayaking resort out in the Andamans. Tell us, what is it that drives you, Tanaz? Because I really have not seen such a diverse experience in a long time.
Hi, Fereshte. Thank you so much for this opportunity to even be here. Thanks, guys, for having me on All Lawrencian Nation 10 session. It's an absolute privilege, and to be on the session of Women Trailblazers, it's pretty cool to be one amongst other Lawrencian women. It's basically that I was never presented with any limits, be it from school days. I mean, nobody ever told you that you're a girl and so you can only take needlework. Yeah, we had carpentry, we had sculpture, I took batik, and my teacher would tell me that, listen, this is completely different from what anybody else or like the normal idea of batik is. And he never said it as an insult. I don't think he meant it as a compliment, but he never meant it as an insult. He never told me to change it. He never told me to conform. Yeah. Even when I took carpentry in school, being the only girl taking carpentry, the boys would come up to me and say things like, oh, you know, you're so lucky because you're a girl, so you get all the attention. Yeah. And I'm like, well, if attention is what you want, then take needlework. What do I care? You know? So if don't allow other people to pull you down. All right. There is an opportunity. You want it. Take it. What do you care what other people think? All right. So I was never presented with limits. And so if that is how I was brought up, I was never afraid to try something new. I was never afraid to test my limits. I was never bonsai'd, is what I'm constantly seeing day school and other kids going through, you know, like all the schools right now, that's what they're doing. They're trimming children. They're bonsaiing them. They're not allowing them to grow. They're not allowing them to just be magnificent anymore. They're not allowed. They have to be in a specific direction. They have to be channeled and bonsai'd and trimmed and hedged and made to look in a particular way. And none of that. I didn't go through any of that. I'm sorry, but that's just how I was conditioned. I was conditioned to be as tall as I could be as great as I could be whatever I wanted to be, anybody. And that's the importance, that's the essence of education. That's what education does to you. It forms you. And I was lucky enough to have that education.
So Tanaz, tell us, why did you effectively choose to go to the Andamans? Is it something that came to you as anything to do with school? Is it something that came to you as anything to do with the sea? What was it that drove you to the Andamans? Because I have been to the Andamans back in the late 70s, and at that point in time, it was this completely unspoiled land. And I do know that a lot has changed since. In fact, I have a dear friend's son who has been doing some amazing research out in the Andamans with the tribals. And I have learned a lot about the ways of life of the tribals there. And of course, you know, back in school, we had Toda tribes, we had the Bardaga tribes, we had that entire silver jewelry that we were exposed to back in school, which was all available in Ooty because of the tribes and their fantastic work. So is there anything that connects up with school when you talk about getting to the Andamans, heading to the Andamans, or is this something that came to you completely unconnected with school? I'm just really very curious.
Yes, in fact, just our exposure to the tribals and the way we were exposed to them and learned about them sensitized us towards tribals. We don't ask, like I've seen other people who have come here. We have a lot of tribals in the Andamans. And I've seen a lot of tourists and others who have come here and said, why don't we just bomb them? I mean, it's so easy to just invade them. And I'm like, I don't get it. Why? Why would you do that? Oh, because, you know, they're just hostile. So that's the thing. They have no empathy or sensitivity towards somebody else or their way of life. The difference, in my opinion, is, they have a certain way of life. Allow them. There is absolutely no need for us to interfere in their lives. Let them be. So that's how I was conditioned to think, as opposed to others. So yeah, for sure, exposure at a young age and set the correct manner of exposure makes a huge difference. Why did I come back? All right, firstly, why did I come here to the Andamans? Firstly, I didn't actually come here. My parents came here. I only came back to the Andamans. My parents moved here in 1994, and that's the year I was born. And the reason why they moved here is because they came here on vacation, fell in love with the place. As luck had it, as fate had it, they got themselves property, prime property out here, which was difficult to refuse. There was no way you could refuse owning an island. And just things just fell into place. My dad got a job here. He was in the Merchant Navy. So things just fell into place. He was from a landlocked place, which is Pune. So, everything just seemed to be correct. It just happened. And they moved here. I'm so glad they did it. Like, absolutely, I'm so privileged and lucky that this happened to them. Yeah. And so when life took its course, after school, I went through college, worked. I was always in the city, and being typical, from a little village, typical villager, you always find the city more attractive because it's full of promise. It's got cafes, it's got pubs, it's got action, it's got movie theaters. We didn't have movie theaters growing up. Our movie theaters were plastic chairs with like cockroaches running under the seat, and like one person would tell the other rat, and everybody lifts their feet up, and the rat would go by like that. And yeah, we had like a little a cloth for a screen, and that was our movie theaters out here. Yeah, so we didn't have any of that. And then being in the big city, which has all of this fancy stuff and this independence, and your neighbors aren't telling on you to your parents, it was all very attractive. All right, it's the simple things, it's the small things, it's the little freedoms that attracts you to the city life. And then there's I want to be a big career woman, and I want to, like, the sky is the limit, and whatever, I want to die for a cause sort of attitude that I had. In fact, I remember the last conversation I had with my father before he passed away. I remember after that conversation, the thought in my head was, I'm never going back. I'm never going back to that tiny little island that is containing my spirit. No, I'm going to be here where there are no limits. And then 6 months later, he passed away, and I had to go back because somebody needed to come back and look after property and just generally take care of a lot of stuff here. So initially, it was like punishment. It felt like prison, a sentence, like I had done something wrong. And then now I'm just going to give you the picture of how life started panning out once I started kayaking, all right? So I'm going to give you this. When I think about kayaking and what it did for me, picture this. There's this, this mirror top glass, sheet of glass, all right? And because it's so flat, there are the reflection of the trees, which are basically mangroves, so they're evergreen, all right? And they're tall and they're majestic. And the reflection of that on this glass mirror water, all right? And then you're in this tiny little boat, which slices straight through that glass every morning, all right? There's an eagle, and I promise you, I'm not making this up. This is not from some movie, Avatar. This is real life. There's an eagle that just swoops down, and I'm like, I don't know what you want. He swoops down, picks up this fish, and I can see the weight of the fish from the effort that this eagle is actually making to fly back up. He's skimming the water with the weight of this fish, and then slowly, with all that effort, flying back up. And then I paddle out to this broken down-ish house because it was badly affected by the tsunami. So my dad built this beautiful little jetty and this little jetty house that we have. So I paddle straight up to that, pick up my kayak, put it on top of the jetty, cook myself a meal, take an afternoon siesta in the hammock, which is on the balcony. I get back into my kayak, go for my second session. And at night, I have my biggest dilemma is, should I sleep on my back where, you know, I can see the traffic jam of stars in the sky, or should I sleep on my stomach where I can see the bioluminescent plankton in the lapping of the water against the jetty pillars? That's my biggest dilemma. All right. My off from workouts were, I would paddle up to the farm and do farm work. How do you say no to that life? I mean, I couldn't go back to the city after this. Nothing else is worth it. Nothing cuts it. This is quality living. This is it. This is what I want. This was worth fighting for, worth sacrificing for, worth everything.
So Tanaz, tell us about your life as a crime reporter. That's something that we have in our professional lives certainly known a lot about. We know that that is as dangerous and treacherous a zone as it gets as a reporter. So any special stories and anything that you connect up with school again on any of that?
Yes, absolutely. So yeah, crime reporting is, it's very glamorous. It sounds great. And actually it is. It gave me a lot of importance to myself, like, I mean, self-importance. It doesn't have to come from somebody else. You have to respect yourself. So you need to feel like you're pushing your own boundaries. And it's always about, you know, oh, you're a girl, you're a white-looking girl, you don't look like a crook, nobody's gonna trust you. You know, so it's a little difficult initially, but then if you're determined, you'll find your way into these things. And in fact, crime reporting was just a stepping stone. I wanted to be an insurgency reporter, basically insurgency as in like Kashmir, Northeast, these kind of places, these issues, and that's what my focus was. I had already started with Manipur and Irom Sharmila and guys speaking about women and speaking about women Mahatmas. She is fabulous. Irom Sharmila, you must Google her and you must follow what she has been through in life and why, and just understand it. It's fabulous. So yeah, so that was one of the things that molded me, was people, their issues, what's happening. Crime exists everywhere. It exists in politics. It exists in the office. It exists in law. It exists in hospitals. So I was reporting on crime all the time. To an extent, it started getting to me in the way that I started seeing crime within me. So when, as a journalist, when you go to a press conference and you accept food, like the snacks that they offer, you accept tea, you accept anything that they offer, you're actually accepting a bribe. That's where crime begins. When you go to a government official's office and he gives you tea, I mean, it sounds so harmless. It sounds like, you know, you're just being social. But actually, a lot of tea drinkers are addicted to tea. Their minds don't work without tea. They start to get headaches. They start to get crabby. They start to feel bad, feel awful. And so a simple cup of tea is helping that addiction. And that's what they're doing. They're feeding your addiction. And you don't realize that. And all of a sudden, I'm seeing all of this. And crime is really starting to get to me. So now you're seeing yourself in this different light. And it's going to turn you into a darker person, because now you have to accept the criminal you are, the way you are, because these are the small things that you can't change. You can't be antisocial. You can't say, no, I'm not taking a cup of chai from you, because it's a bribe. Or I go to a press conference and be holier than thou. It's not going to happen, right? So then it starts to eat you, and you start to accept that, listen, there's crime within me. And yes, there were a lot of stories, but I don't think it was a good thing to keep going in this direction. I think it would have been pretty self-destructive in the direction I was going in. I was already, it was taking its toll. And that's actually when the kayaking, when I came back here, because I tried to be a reporter even here, I tried to be a journalist, and realized nobody reads newspapers out here. So that was a relief. Well, in hindsight, not at the time. At the time, I was struggling very hard. But that's when the kayaking helped immensely, and even like all this self-awareness, this thinking about what you're doing, I think it starts from education. It starts from childhood. Like, what kind of a person are you? How are you conditioned? It starts right from there. It starts from your schooling, and so I'm glad that my choices were made by my education, because I love my choices. They've been great. They've given me a good life. They've given me happiness. They've given me peace. And I can ask for more. There's nothing I could ask for. I need nothing in my life.
Tanaz, I understand you are passionate about everything that has to do with exploration. So whether it is the planet, whether it is to be awoken by a creature of the planet, I'm not sure which creature, happy to understand which creature you want to be woken up by, but do share more of that with us. Obviously, having lived in the Nilgiris and having known the hills, having known our cross country, having known everything that we did about life back in school, what is it that connects you up with that? Because I'm quite sure that as you did in your time, we in our time in school actually had the privilege of having that complete connect with nature, whether it was having class on the lawns out at senior school or in multiple different zones out in school. So is that what has effectively stayed with you and allowed you to pursue and live life on your own terms, as you clearly do?
Yes, actually, school was a lot of the actual planet. Like, there was, as you said, lawns. We would have classes out in open lawns, and we would have cross country, which involved slush, and we had dogs, we had cats, we had horses, we played with squirrels. I mean, there was a lot of nature. There was a lot of nature involved, and there were others around us who weren't afraid, others our age, others who we constantly interacted with. And, you always thought, listen, if this person can be friendly with the dog, why can't I? Or with horses, who would eat the same carrot. I'm eating the carrot and feeding the horse, or I'm eating a piece of jaggery and feeding the horse, the same thing. We were even made to taste the horse's food, like, is there enough salt? Things like that. Yeah. So it's a different kind of bond, and it's a different kind of empathy. All of a sudden, animals are not animals. Yeah, they're part of us. They're one of us. And that gives you a different mindset altogether. So yeah, the creatures that I'm talking about, in school, I've been literally bitten by just about everything, even a rat. Not pleasant, but yeah. I mean, it's not a big deal. You live and you keep going. Come back home. My childhood was being woken up by my pet dog. She would come into the house and lick my face. Can you imagine being woken up by 1,000 kisses every day? It's beautiful. It's such a beautiful thing to wake up to. Or like when I was sleeping on the jetty house, to have the birds wake you up, and you're like, dude, do whatever you want to do. Shh, do it quietly. I'm trying to sleep. So that's the whole point, is be with nature. Let it wake you up. Let it impress you. Let it surprise you. That's the whole point. Amongst the list of things that I've been woken up by is a crab. It woke me up nibbling on my back while I was on the jetty house. So the point is, do this. Be woken up by weird things, because that is the life worth living. That's what I mean.
So Tanaz, any message for anyone back in school who wants to live the life that you have? It sounds to me like it's been a fantastic, independent, carefree, do what your drumbeat allows you to dream and effectively implement. We want to know all about that.
It's going to be hard. Yeah, if you really want to know, I mean, I come off as this super carefree person. Everybody is always saying, oh, you know, this footloose and fancy free, and this person who doesn't care about anything. It takes a bit of work to get here, to sacrifice things, to not get carried away by the rest of the tide. It takes a little bit of belief in yourself is what I mean. And that is sometimes the hardest thing. Believing and trusting yourself is a lot more difficult than believing and trusting somebody else. And I don't understand why. What is so great about the other person that you would believe, but you won't listen to the voice inside you. You don't want to follow your own dreams, but you're willing to follow someone else's. Who's that person? Why? I mean, so what? So that is something that only you can answer. And you have to sit down and you have to question yourself and you have to figure this out. And the most important thing is do not be. Fear is the most crippling emotion that we own. Not hope. Hope is not the killer. Fear is. All right? Out there is nothing against you. The only thing against you, the only thing that you have to be wary of is fear. That's your fear. If you can get over that, you can be anywhere, anyhow. And that's my single biggest advice to anybody is to overcome it, is to sit down and figure it out, that panic. What is that? What is it all about? And you realize it's irrational. It's not real. It has no meaning. It makes no sense. And that's when you're going to break out of that and go forth. You're going to follow your dream instead of somebody else's.
Any message for everyone out in school?
The sky is the limit. Actually, the sky isn't. There is no limit. There is no such thing as impossible. Don't believe it. Okay?
And now for Kalpana.
Actually, my only question for Tanaz has probably been asked by Fereshte. What has it been to have been on a road less traveled? All of us leave school with the idea to pursue something, plans. It's always planned. You'll do this, you'll do something next. I mean, I had my career planned for myself when I was in 8th grade. I always knew I wanted to be an architect, and I followed my path and did what it took to be one. What would you tell somebody to be cautious about when you take a road less traveled? I know there's a passion behind it. I know you enjoy it. You've given us all the answers that Fereshte had for you. But if you had to caution somebody about taking a road less traveled, what might you tell them?
To be honest, I don't know, I quite admire people who have had a plan their whole life and have pursued it and have achieved it, because I never had a plan, ever. Okay, even when I left school, I didn't know what I wanted to grow up to be. Even after college, I didn't know. As far as I was concerned, after school, the only plan I had was never to write another exam again. I never wanted to write another exam. That was it. That was my plan. I will do anything that does not involve writing another exam. That was it. All right. So yeah, and I've achieved that. So, but how do you pursue something now? So now what I do is the road less traveled. And it's after many, many years of being on this road that I've realized that the road less traveled is a privilege. Not many people have that option. Not many people have the mindset, have the courage to even see that road. Okay? As far as they're concerned, the roads are fixed. There are only a few roads and nothing else works. Everything else is a dead end. So when you can see that road, that is a privilege. You are lucky that you have that opportunity to travel the road less traveled. Do it. Now, there will be trouble on the way, especially in terms of, like, for instance, being a girl. Okay, so I'm a kayak tour guide. All right, I take kayak tours. All right, I'm an instructor. I'm a kayaking instructor. So tourists come to me or students come to me. They want to learn kayaking or they want to do a tour. They want to experience what is kayaking, blah blah blah, etc. What is nature? What are mangroves? Take me on your nature trails, that sort of thing. So then, yeah, okay. So this is what I do. It's an outdoor activity. It's an adventure sport. Kayaking is an adventure sport. To be a kayak instructor in a place as backward as the Andamans is considered a man's job. All right, it's not something a woman does. I've actually had comments from people I've been made to meet, and the person actually turns around and says, "Oh, I think women who work in the sun are ugly." Just like, I'm so glad you think so, because that just makes things very clear for me. I ain't coming anywhere near you. Only if you are true to yourself can you allow your business to be what you want it to be. And turning your hobby into your work, it's a tricky one. All right, there has to be a balance. You will sacrifice some of the love. So what I enjoy, as I told you, is slicing through that sheet of glass early in the morning, and just going back to the hammock and things like that. But I'm not going to have that kind of lifestyle if I'm turning it into my profession. Sometimes you're going to be doing it to teach, or sometimes you're going to be doing it to earn. And why you do that is going to give you the happiness. So now I take pride. Like, I don't need to tow them, or they've capsized and gotten back into the kayak without any fear, without any help. And little things like that is what will eventually give you happiness. So there will be an evolution that you have actually passed on your passion to them, and that's what's give you passion. The point is, the compromise shouldn't be so severe that it's no longer fun, and you have to draw a line. Like, for instance, I was operating out of an island known as Havelock. And very recently, it's gotten so commercial and so busy and so crowded that I'm just not enjoying it anymore. So I've taken a step back. I don't want to do that. I want to do something that's more peaceful, that is as enjoyable by my guests as it is by me. I want to enjoy my work too. All right? So there has to be a balance. I don't want to get carried away by this whole commercial earning, whole make a kayaking empire. What's the point of that if I'm not enjoying it? I mean, the reason I started this was because I wanted to do what I love to do. So if you're not going to do that, then the whole point of it is lost. Only if you love what you do can you be good at it. Can you excel at it? And only when you excel at something will people come to you. Will you have the biggest market share? And so you will be the best at it. And you will make money. You will thrive. That's how.
Thank you so very much, Tanaz. Appreciate you coming on OL Nation session 10. It's been a pleasure to have had you on the session. Fereshte, appreciate you moderating and being a speaker on this session. And I'm so impressed to hear of everybody's journeys and accomplishments. So I'll give you a few words to close out if you want.
Well, thank you, Kalpana, and thank you, everyone. Thank you, Meher. Thank you, Deepika. Thank you, Purnima. Thank you, Tanaz. It's been an absolutely amazing session. It's been amazing learning about your lives. And we want to obviously ensure that everyone stays connected. I do hope that between Kalpana and Rohan and Rashid and Murad and everyone who's been a part of putting OL Nation together, all of us will continue to remain closely associated and connected in any which way we can. And obviously, as a celebration of women achievers must necessarily conclude with, I have to certainly say that it's been fantastic being part of Lovedale, because frankly, Lovedale instilled in us that there was no gender. I have to make that point, and I would be very keen to know if all of our co-panelists would in any way, shape or form agree or disagree with that view. I do believe that we viewed ourselves as human beings first, and gender was never a criterion. I have to say that it never ever came in the way for any of us, at least certainly not for myself, and certainly not in the way of any of us at the places at which I work, at the places at which I have had occasion to pursue further academia and such other pursuits as one ordinarily would in life. I have to say, therefore, that while today's program is devoted to women achievers, I would want to just classify everyone who's been on this program as an achiever, and that is who we are. That is who we stand for. We're people who have effectively walked the talk, and I'm quite sure that for everyone who's out there in Lovedale today and will continue to come to Lovedale, you should know that what Lovedale taught us was that we're human beings first, and there is really no gender. Gender is not something that we in Lovedale know, and we should certainly continue to hold that out to the world at large so that we make the world a better place for everybody. So Meher, tell us, where would you stand on that?
So I completely agree with you, Fereshte. I think that Lovedale has been a lesson for a lifetime for us, and for me definitely. And there has been no gender discrimination as far as Lovedale is concerned, and that is what I have carried throughout my life. When I say that for me, there is no Women's Day, it's 365 days of Women's Day, or whatever, Men's Day even.
Yeah, I frankly don't know the difference between men and women, but anyway, so
yeah.
Over to you.
Yeah, it's fair enough.
I've never felt that, men are superior or women are inferior. I think we're just equal, and we together make a complete pair, and we need each other to make a complete pair. And when we realize that, I think it will be such a great place to be in.
Right, thank you, Meher. That's wonderful. Purnima, over to you.
Yeah, it's funny, Fereshte, because I was thinking exactly that the issue of being a girl or, being a woman was never a big deal in the context of our education, right? I mean, we were each, it was more like you were either a brainy one or a sporty one or something else. We were valued for traits that were beyond and different from our gender, and the gender part was never in it. And again, it's just one of those things where, I guess at some level it was a broadly gender neutral sort of educational setting, even though we had the guys' dorms and the girls' dorms, and there was all the, the usual teenage things, etc. But we were never made to feel like we were different or that we had different opportunities ahead of us. And so I think to approach this with sort of humanity in its fullness, and it's great to be together with this collection of amazing OL women, but like you, I just think this is a great collection of amazing OLs. That's it. And we should celebrate the fact that we all had such, really it was such a privilege to have that kind of an education. And so I don't think we should take that for granted, what a privilege it was. And I think we need to think hard about how we pay that forward to everybody around us, treating everyone equally and sort of valuing people for what they bring that is not their gender alone. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So Deepika, where do you stand on this one with us?
No, I completely agree. And I think I remember after I finished my 12th, I went to women's college and I missed the boys terribly. I really felt
Me too.
so lost and like, because it's just the whole vibe, and like I think Meher said it, you need each other, and I think men and women also make great team. Women together make a great team. I mean, so I don't think it's really gender. And I was so happy that post my graduation I got back into again being in a co-education for my post graduation, and I even met my husband there. So I really encourage for these co-education programs. Yeah, so I completely agree. I've also been fortunate, Fereshte, like you also mentioned, in terms of my career, wherever I have gone, I have not had peers or superiors or subordinates who've looked at gender as a basis or anything. I think I've had great mentors of both genders, and they've really just shown the path. So I'm quite grateful for that.
Thank you very much. That's very, very useful. Thank you, Deepika. So do you guys have any questions for each other? Meher, Purnima, Deepika, over to you. Please shoot.
Maybe I can go. I was just curious, Fereshte, to ask you. I mean, we talked about a lot of, in terms of takeaways and messages. Can you share something fun back in school that brings a smile? I think really helpful during tough times in life as well. So something that you can immediately think of that was fun?
Well, honestly, I had 8 years of blissful fun. There's no question about that. So, and as I said, it was from the admonitions from my prefects to, doing the drill in terms of going to top flats with your luggage, to doing that entire ghost thingy that they used to do back in Halloween, to the midnight feasts which you guys spoke about, to just about everything. So I frankly think it's just unmitigated fun all the way. I mean, which is that best big memory? I think that's really a tough one to pick out, but thank you. That, as I said to you, every time you think about school, you just get transported in time. And I think, frankly, you could be tucking into any and all of that very easily, very quickly. Of course, the tuck shop was one of my big favorites. So, yeah. So,
do you remember anything you bought from them? Like, if you had to top picks from the tuck shop, something that comes to your mind?
Tuck shop, I think it used to be a fried egg on toast, if I'm not mistaken.
That's everybody's favorite, fried eggs on toast, which were the costliest in the tuck shop. Otherwise, everything else was yes, we used to save up for those fried eggs on toast. God.
Yep. Thank you.
I'd love to be in touch with all the ladies, even after this session. So I hope you don't mind if I, call you and chat with you and keep in touch, because I may have an opportunity of interviewing you for one of my articles, if that's all right with all of you.
I think that's the purpose. That's one of the purposes of objectives, is to get you guys connected and, talk about anything and everything, both socially, professionally. And I think it's wonderful. In fact, a lot of, I think, Kalpana, what we've had about 40 people now over the last, and a lot of the guys are in touch with one another, doing all sorts of stuff. And of course, Rashid, who's in the background right now, he is more than, happy to work with you guys on presentation and so many other things. So thank you, ladies. Thank you really very much for coming on this evening. You've learned so much about your professional lives and what rock stars you women really are. Okay, and I'm so happy that you talked about gender neutrality. That was something I don't think, I don't know how the guys felt about that, but it's nice to hear your points of view. Of course, as you know, Fereshte and Purnima, I come from a family of girls, so I had Reina and Roseanne, and I, mom, 2 sisters, and a wife, 2 daughters. So I can understand exactly what you say, and this recording, I'm most certainly going to share with my children, because that's what it's all about, inspiration. Thank you once again, and see you soon.
Thank you so much, Rohan. It was a pleasure. A pleasure.
Thank you, Rohan. Thank you.
ring, kissing my skin. And with every breath I soak you in. Even though years have passed us by, seems like we never said goodbye. Did you miss me while I was gone? For there's nowhere else I could belong. And now in your arms, here I stand, a city boy who once was a mountain man.